Thanks for staying with us on Morning Express. It's time to discuss the major issues in the news. Joining me in studio to discuss this is a public affairs analyst and an astute social commentator, Moses Idika. Mr. Moses, good morning to you.
Good morning.
It seems as though the cold morning in Abuja is getting to you. Need a cup of coffee?
No, I'm fine. I'm fine.
Well then, having said that, that's aside, let's get straight into the issues making the rounds. Now, the current administration is midterm. There have been a lot of criticisms about some of the bold decisions, so to say, taken by President Bola Ahmed Tinubu in line with his renewed hope vision for Nigeria. Just yesterday, we're listening to the Vice President discussing the possibility of having more investments come in, where he restated President Bola Ahmed Tinubu's focus on taking these bold decisions despite the pains and the complaints that Nigerians have about how they view these economic policies. In your opinion, it's been 2 years down the line since they took the helm of affairs. Are they making progress? Are the pains worth it? Are you more optimistic or pessimistic?
Yeah, good morning again. It's a tricky question in that, yes, the president has taken bold steps, but those bold steps, the speed of translation to the welfare of Nigerians is very, very slow. There is no Nigerian today on the street, in their homes, that will tell you that they've had the best 2 years of their lives in Nigeria. So definitely it is we haven't seen the result. The yield period, we are not getting proper explanation. Is it that it's going to yield, or are they going to tweak it or something? But the bottom line is that you can't say that Nigerians are better off for it. Of course, there are a few good things here and there. For example, the genesis of what we know is the removal of subsidy on fuel. And somehow, since the removal, the perennial scarcity we used to have is gone. But then it has also drained the purchasing power of Nigerians. People are no longer able to meet up with a lot of their basic needs as they used to be. Even those, a lot of people no longer drive their vehicles, for those who purchase fuel directly, because the effect, this ripple effect on all spheres of our national life, starting from those who actually buy the fuel themselves. If you use a standard sedan vehicle, before the removal of the subsidy, you could use between 10 and 11,000 to fill the tank. Today, it is around 75, 80,000 to fill a tank of a basic vehicle. And the minimum wage is said to be 70,000, which is still in dispute because several parts of Nigeria, people are yet to implement it. Yes, people are still not getting the minimum wage. So it's a crisis. It's a crisis. The government needs to review its game and up it.
Let's start with this point you've raised on the supposed gains of fuel subsidy removal.
Yeah.
Now, post fuel subsidy, we've also seen a change in the leadership of NNPCL, who is the sole importer of fuel. Let's talk about that before we talk about the trickling effect that's supposed to be felt in states where there's now an increased FAT. Let's begin with this change in leadership in NNPCL.
Well, what we know, the change in NNPC would not really translate into anything if the government itself, the owners of the NNPC, does not change the model of management of NNPC. If you look around, several multinational or national oil companies that were established in the 60s, 70s, they've all transitioned into an accountable, plain, transparent national oil companies. It is only the NNPC that is still so opaque that even technical staff of NNPC cannot tell you the basic statistics, the basic figures that Nigeria produces so number of barrels per day. and this is how much we earn.
So you believe it's still shrouded in that secrecy?
Still shrouded in secrecy. So it does not matter how many times the management of NNPCs change, until the model, which is the superstructure of NNPC as an oil corporation, is changed, nothing is going to change. It's just like shifting some persons to bring in some persons to do the same thing.
Now, in President Bola Ahmed Tinubu's defense, he has appointed Engineer Bayo Julari. Many say it's supposed to be an upgrade from the ex-GC Omele Kyari, who the World Bank this morning released a statement saying that under his watch, there was no remittance of 500 billion naira as was widely purported.
That is, you know, the figures don't lie. Yes, people could cook figures, because over the years, NNPC has consistently cooked figures spontaneously to feed different sections of the media, different sections of Nigeria. They go to some boardroom, they come with different figures. They come to TV, they come with different figures. But we haven't seen any of these figures translate into concrete terms that Nigeria, as a major oil producing country in this world, our oil industry is not developing. We are seeing flaring gas notwithstanding. There is no development in that sector, because other nations, Dubai, the Middle East, even Venezuela, they can say confidently that this is how much oil we produce. Recall that OPEC says production quota is between 2 million, 2.1, 2.2, but for decades, NNPC has consistently not met our production quota.
This failure just to buttress your points and also lead to our next question, this failure is said to be threatening the 2025 budget. Mind you, we're still running a 2024 budget that has been extended by a month. The windfalls in the drop in global prices of oil has affected our targeted budget for 2025. Do you think that merely changing the NNPC leadership would not fix these woes like you're listing them? How do we now deviate or diversify our economy away from a 95% dependence on oil for revenue?
Well, you know why it has become very difficult for Nigeria to diversify its economy is because the government has consistently refused to invest in the economy. For example, agriculture, solid minerals. If you have to invest in those sectors, you have to be accountable. You have to take bold steps. In agriculture, you have to mechanize it. You have to tweak the laws. You have to ensure that you invest. So Nigerian government is usually not ready to invest. When a government is not ready to invest, people in government, they don't invest unless in their private businesses. That is why you see in every state, at the national level, government come, they abandon what was going on, starts afresh, because it is usually driven by the need to recoup, to get something from the system. So if you want to diversify the economy, you have to be transparent. This is where we are going. These are the milestones, and we have to take this step to this step to this step. So for any government that is unwilling to put its cards on the table in terms of growing the economy, then there's nothing can be done.
Now, still talking post-subsidy, one of the gains under the Tinubu administration is that the money that was supposed to be saved up following the removal of subsidy was to go to states through FAC. Now, evidently, FAC has increased with more allocations going to the state. But the challenge is that even at the state level, many Nigerians are asking what are the state governors using the increased FAC to do. It's almost non-evident. Why do you think this is so?
Yeah, it goes back to what I say about model of governance, model of the kind of democracy we run. We were told that the moment subsidy is removed, all our problems will be solved. But we realized that the moment the subsidy was removed, yes, with inflation, with devaluation of the naira, the figures boomed. We start hearing trillions. Before now, some states say the allocation is 2 billion naira. Now we hear of 8 billion and all that. Yet, when we started this discussion, we talked about the minimum wage. With that increased funding to states, basic as the minimum wage is, a lot of states have not been paying. Some, they've made promises. Some states even say they are going to be paying 75,000 naira, but it has not been translated. It has not been actioned to the benefit of the civil servant. And beyond all these things we are talking about, less than 10% of Nigerians are civil servants. So when people talk about minimum wage as if every Nigerian is earning a minimum wage, then it begs the question. So like you asked, the issue really is that the monies, each time any government says we are doing this to save money, including borrowing to up the game in the system, create social services and all that, it ends up in private pockets. So it has not, in clear terms, translated into any benefit to Nigerians at any level.
Now, I just would like to borrow from the statement made by the Vice President, because he says that the President Tinubu's administration is taking accurate measures of revenue, deficits, and prospects. Accurate. I don't know the metrics for measurement, but having seen that at least there's now more allocations to the states, it's more of a case of people saying that the president almost takes up all the blame, whereas Nigeria is a federating state, and the state governors also share a part in this blame. Whilst we have state governors that are performing by certain metrics and yardsticks, how would you rate the overall performance of the country Nigeria in terms of these prospects that Mr. VP is speaking about?
Well, he's talking politically because the facts on the ground do not support that statement. One, you cannot be talking about people coming to invest in an uncertain terrain. Nigeria has become an uncertain terrain. There is no part of this country today that is safe. If insurgents just 48 hours ago we heard of Boko Haram storming a military base, killing our soldiers. It's not the first time, it's not the second time. A lot of Nigerians are currently in forests, in custody of bandits, kidnappers, and the rest, what have you. Now, everywhere you go, in Lagos, our industrial and economic hub, there is no power in Lagos, just like there is no power in other parts of Nigeria. When you go to places where you have very few buildings, you see electricity. But when you go to places, the production hubs where people can do one or two things, then there is no power. Diesel is over 1,000 naira per liter. Petrol is hovering between 900 and 1,000 naira per liter. I mean, how do you run that kind of economy? Who wants to come and invest in this kind of place? When you can produce in China and bring here, or you can produce in Asia, or even some smaller African countries, Namibia, Botswana, that, are getting around their issues. So when the vice president or the president or any officer of the government says investments are coming, there is no investment coming anywhere.
In the opposite, we've also seen some major players exit the country over the past 2 years since they've been in government.
Yes, because in other places, the transition from fuel efficient or energy efficient system, they expand their investment. But in Nigeria, the major corporations that could provide basic things for themselves, that could provide security, that could provide power, that could provide basic infrastructure, water for themselves, they are all leaving. Is it now someone who can't? How many Nigerian investors? Because when you talk about investors, you must take the low-hanging fruit. And what is the low-hanging fruit? You have to, your own internal resources, turn it to something that to yield. You don't just start bringing foreign investors when you can't even explore to the benefit of your people what you have. How many Nigerians are investing in Nigeria? Nigerians that are in Nigeria would rather import than start up something. Because when you say the president is taking both steps, yes, he has taken both steps. And the both steps, it's in, you can see what is going on in the tax system. Nobody is talking about accountability, because before you talk about taxing people, bringing in more money, you have to show us that the ones being brought in already is being deployed. But the bold step we are talking about is squeezing life out of Nigerians through taxes. So I strongly disagree with the Vice President. All that are just optics for the second year anniversary of the government.
Now let's move on to another issue in the news, somewhat controversial. In 2007, beg your pardon, we saw a presidential candidate under the ADC, Professor Utomi. A lot of persons have applauded him for his scholarly approach to solving issues in the country. But this morning, the DSS has charged him to court over comments on creating a shadow government within the country, which they say threatens the 1999 constitution and is a move that might destabilize the country. I don't know your take on this issue, somewhat controversial with the DSS, other than we see the other ways of arresting and manhandling all the Nigerians have done the legal thing by charging him to court.
Well, I'm not so. Anybody in Nigeria currently will not be surprised that DSS is taking Nigeria. The civic space is shrinking every day. Free speech is no longer part of our system. Unfortunately, President Bola Tinubu thrived on opposing the government. Even during the military, President Bola Tinubu, former governor of Ekiti State, together they ran democracy. Is it
Nadeco?
Nadeco, and they had a radio station that said things, printable and unprintable things, about the then military government. At the dawn of democracy on May 29, 1999, they started. That is why even the president is a strong media entrepreneur. He has media houses here and there. The persons that ushered in the democracy as we had it in 1999 was basically free speech, the media, and the civil society. Now, 25 years later, we are rather regressing back to the pre-military, to the pre-May 29, 1999 days, where people say something, they are charged for sedition, or they are charged for espionage, or all manner of the adjective we heard in the 80s, in the heydays of the military. They are now recurrent decima in our media space, and it is very, very unfortunate. Personally, I condemn the action of the DSS, because this is a democracy. And in a democracy, the opposition is already a shadow government of its own. Because what is a shadow government? A government in waiting, that because nature abhors vacuum. So if this government doesn't get to do well, we are ready to come in. So basic literary meaning of shadow government does not mean that it's a government that has access to government resources or is commanding the armed forces of the country. It's basic, a conceptual part of our democracy. And until Nigerians fight back this, then I think we may have ourselves to blame.
Now, moving on, let's look at some of the legislative deliberations that were had on the floor of the Senate yesterday. Many look at the 2027 elections as key in shaping Nigeria's future. First off, there's been almost like a landslide with the 2/3 majority tilting towards the All Progressive Congress. 3 Kebbi PDP senators defected most recently, and to pass whatever to a voice vote would mean that it's easily the way the ruling party wants it to go. Now, off the back of this, we're seeing 5 INEC recs approved ahead of the election. We're also seeing debates on what many are calling quite the milestone budget in the FCT, 1.78 trillion naira. I don't know if you followed some of the deliberations recently and care to comment in that respect.
Well, I think the APC government is jittery at the center. They are jittery in that they believe that certain sections of the country are ready to fight them, to vote against them. So what the APC is doing is like bring everybody to one basket. But the danger in that is that the temperatures are different, and at the appropriate time, there might be an implosion.
In terms of conflict of interest?
Yes, within the party. Yes, before now, 2 years ago, for 2 good years, there have been an APC government in Kebbi State. There have been major supporters of the APC government in Kebbi State. There were people that were already preparing themselves to go for those 3 senatorial district seats, go to House of Reps, go to State House of Assembly. Now what it means is that they are going to effectively shut out these persons. And for example,
making them join the camp of aggrieved.
Yes, someone like Adamu Alero, somebody like Senator Abdullah, who was a former Senate leader. These are people who have been in the Senate for donkey years. What that means is that you are shutting out the ambitions of some other genuine APC supporters in the state. And how are you going to manage that? So there are dynamics to all this, and it cuts across all the states. Secondly, the government is also not getting it right, because the government still believes that it is certain individuals that will shape the election. The government is not taking into consideration the perception, the temperament, the feelings of
the electorate.
What are they going to do? So you see that the government is prancing around, but it's not getting it right. Why not talk to Nigerians? Why not work for Nigerians? So for me, I don't see that as I know that when Nigeria gets to that bridge, it will definitely be crossed. There has never been a time since 1999 that a sitting government successfully returned everybody it wanted to return. It has never happened 2003, 2007, 2011, 2015, 2019, 2023. It has never happened. The people somehow always had their say. It may not be widespread, but the people. So I do not believe that even if the entire members of the National Assembly, the 109 in the Senate and 360 in the House of Reps, even if all of them defect to the APC, the 11th National Assembly will still not be 100% APC.
But do Nigerians have any right, would I say, or reason is the better word, reason to suspect the competence of the 5 INEC recs they approved by the Senate?
Well, you know, why we worry about some of these issues is because the institutions of governance in the country is so weak. Remember the time former president nominated one of his media aides as from Delta State as INEC commissioner, national commissioner. The civil society, opposition political party people came and said no. Now, in that same Delta State, the sitting government there of APC did not win it. even the sitting government in the state, PDP, did not win the presidential election of that state. In Delta, I'm using Delta for example, where that controversy originated about that woman. Now, so when you talk about the INEC commissioners, it has the laws establishing INEC didn't specify didn't give INEC that independence of, getting their own commissioners. Everything is still left in the hands of the president. Even the Supreme Court, the Chief Justice of Nigeria, is appointed by the president. So when you look at this, ordinarily it shouldn't bother us, assuming the institutions are strong enough to stand on its own. Like you go to a filling station, the dispensing machine is calibrated in such a way that you impute the number of liters or the amount of money quantity that should be bought, so that when you impute 1,000 naira, for example, and you leave it to dispense autonomously, the moment it gets 1,000, it stops. So that is something that is working independent of its operator. So, and that is why some of us keep saying that it doesn't matter, our laws are okay. However, what we need to do is to actually obey the laws. Because it does not matter who the INEC chairman is. Assuming the INEC, why did INEC have issues with Nigeria? And they said that their vows has come to change the system in such a way that is what you put, if you garbage in any garbage, you get out garbage. If you put in any refined data, you get refined data. So a lot of Nigerians went to SASTIC, they felt, oh yeah, this is going to work.
They also tied it with the promise of IREV. In real time, you see the result.
You see the result. So when you look at that, assuming such systems can work, then it does not matter who is the INEC commissioner or the REC or not, because that REC is going to, the REC has his or her duties clearly mapped out in the electoral guideline. This is what you do, this is what you do. The rest is left for the people.
And the system backed by technology.
Yeah, backed by technology to get it. So for me, I don't want to buy into that argument. Whoever becomes REC is at the pleasure of the people in power. They have the right to appoint and sack. So they can appoint anybody. But Nigerians, it is the duty of Nigerians to hold the institution, INEC, to account. And that is the only way to go about it.
Now, you had earlier mentioned the Chief Justice of Nigeria, Kekere-Ekun, citing your examples on how institutions are supposed to be autonomous. This morning, she made headline on one of the papers in which she admitted that the Nigerian judiciary has quite a hurdle to surmount. But she promised that under her watch, she would drag the judicial system out of the woods. I don't know, is it supposed to be in her credit or to the defense of the judiciary on where they are and how much progress can be made?
I don't have any reason to doubt her, irrespective of her antecedents, but I still don't have any reason to doubt her in that the judiciary has a very strong disciplinary system that the CJN should just activate the disciplinary system within the Nigerian Judicial Council, to the point that erring judges can be punished. Recently, certain judges were suspended, some were exonerated from petitions and others. So if the CJN can just allow the system to work, then she can't do it all. There is no one human being that can come and reform the entire sector or his or her sector in one go. But lead by example, start it, then it takes off from there. Just take off. We haven't seen the judiciary taking off in self-reform. So until we see that, we can take her serious. But for me, as an individual, as a Nigerian, I can give her the benefit of the doubt, because she actually has an opportunity to write her name in gold as one of our best jurists.
Now, let's look at another pressing issue. We're going back now to the National Assembly. The Green Chambers, House of Representatives, have been quite bold in recent statements they've made as it concerns Nigeria's monetary policy. Much like you lamented at your opening remark, they talked about the interest rate being at one of its highest ever. They also lamented the impacts of this on the quality of life, standard of life, and more so on the 133 million Nigerians currently faced with multidimensional poverty. They're a legislative arm of government, and beyond complaining much like we are doing, are there other legislative ways of ensuring that this interest rate is brought down?
Well, I think I give kudos to the House of Representatives. One thing the 10th House of Representatives has done differently is that it's been open. It's not pretentious about certain decisions. And of course, as the legislative arm of the government, they are doing their bit in tweaking the laws, because like was said at the plenary, Nigeria, we talked about, like Mr. Vice President said, about investment coming. When you look at interest rates, there is no one in this country today that can go to the bank and get a loan to finance a business. You will definitely run at loss. And of course, Nigerian banks don't even extend loans to the manufacturing sector. They rather extend loans to people who import. In 90 days, they are paid back. So these are the things that has kept the economy down. All over Africa. In Nigeria, we have the highest interest rate of any part of the globe. So how do you survive? The business environment cannot work. Let's bring it down. With the advent of technology, you find out that there's this, what they call loan apps, that ordinary Nigerians on the road can borrow 10,000, borrow 5,000 from. When you go out on the street, check out those who patronize those loan apps. You find out that there's one thing common among them. They are constantly restless, because you borrow from this app, it's due in a few days, you borrow from the other app to pay. Why? Because the interest, the charges, is sometimes double what you have to pay. Imagine that you are borrowing to do business. There is no business on earth that you borrow
give you that type of turnover.
Give you that kind of turnover. So that is the summary of the system. So I think that the National Assembly, because the House of Rep cannot do it alone, whatever law is made in the House of Rep, there has to be a concurrence from the Senate for it to go through, and then before the clean copy gets to the President. I encourage them to continuously tweak the laws to the point that Nigeria financial services sector can be brought to work for Nigeria, for Nigerians, for the economy. Nigerian banks declare profit in trillions, but their customers are getting poorer every day. You take your phone, somebody sends money to you, they deduct from you, they deduct from the person that sent to you,
card maintenance charges.
You get money from anywhere before.
SMS notification.
You wake up in the morning, the first SMS you see is from your bank. It is only in Nigerian bank that you can go and deposit 10,000 naira. Leave it over a 2 month.
In a savings account, mind you.
Yeah, leave it over a 2 month period. You have less than 9,000. How? So the National Assembly, the House of Representatives, must actually do more. I call on them to do more, because this system is actually becoming a crime scene.
Well, let's talk about one political story making the rounds as we look to wrap up on our discussions this morning. It's the People's Democratic Party, a party now that many ex-governors under the umbrella of the PDP are also saying that it's in the ICU, and if nothing is done before 2027, the party might be in comatose. This morning, there's more drama in the PDP. The position of the national secretary has been another one called into question, more like the position of its national chairman with Damagun and the debates of Yochia Ayu's tenure. Now, Ude Okoye is facing strong contention from Koshedo, the South-East caucus, threatening that if Ude Okoye is not considered for the position, they would exit the party. Let's get your thoughts on what's happening to the PDP over these positions and the debacles of defection.
Well, the issue in the PDP is just certain individuals, even in the party, working hard. There are now agents of the APC, because do
you care to name names?
The facts are there. Of course, I can name names, because if you see the activities of the governor of Oyo State, the governor of Oyo State is the one behind most of the crisis in the PDP. He's not a man that talks. He likes operating from behind. But when you look at it, he's the one behind what is going on. And you find that it's unfortunate, because the beneficiaries of the PDP are the one working so hard to kill the party. You mentioned the Southeast. The Southeast, from what I know, does not have the people parading themselves as the leaders of the PDP in the Southeast. I know of one Mr. Leodefa who said he's the national vice chairman of the party. I know he was expelled from the party. I know there have been series of court judgments affirming the expulsion of the man. I know that the Supreme Court has laid to rest that issue between Senator Sam Anyanwu and Ude Okoye, that Ude Okoye was never part of the system of the PDP National Working Committee. So how come he comes in? And during the Supreme Court ruling, I looked at the judgment, I read through the CTC that became public, and I now found out that, the Supreme Court stated clearly that there was no time that the office of the National Secretary was vacant, that the party should go back and put its house in order. Now, I heard that the governors took powers that do not belong to them. In any case, it was advisory that the acting national chairman, acting national secretary should be appointed, whereas there is a sitting national secretary. So when you look at what is going on in the PDP, is officials of the party, people elected on the platform of the party, playing sentimental politics, because Governor Makinde is from the Southwest, the president is from the Southwest. They've formed alliance even from 2023 general elections, and that is what is playing out now. And they have to plant in people like Mr. Lefa in the Southeast and some other persons in some other areas. And so the issue really in the PDP is that the party has to reinvent itself. The elders of the party has to, because Nigeria cannot be allowed to go into one-party state. It is the opposition that legitimizes the ruling government in a democracy. If not, it is not a democracy. So I think that it is high time that even the judiciary should be clearer in declaration in their judgment, because the impunity is too much.
Are you talking about defections and the position of the law?
No,
defections?
I'm not talking about defections. Defections, usually they negotiate it. That is why it doesn't get to go to where it got to. It has to go. Because if you test the judiciary, they always tell you they are not Father Christmas. Until you come, you can't. So most times, they don't allow, those who defect, do not allow their former party to actually go through
the legal
process, because at the end of the day, it's going to, the constitution is clear about that. In PDP, what I'm saying is that the party itself must reinvent itself. If not, if it allows these individuals who feel they are so powerful, these governors, these some National Working Committee members who have yielded themselves to forces that are actually seeking to kill the party. At least what they are doing is to keep the party busy, so that by the next election, the party is not going to have candidates, and that is what may play out. Why would somebody tell you that if you don't get Mike, if you don't allow Udokoye, I will go to another party? The person is already going to another party, because Udokoye has no stake in the office of the National Secretary of the PDP. There is a National Secretary of the PDP who didn't resign, who is still there. So, and this National Secretary has 2-3 months to go. So, if you're a political party that really wants to get things right in your party, you allow that process to go.
Now, the former Senate President Bukola Saraki has now been saddled with the responsibility of heading a committee to lead reconciliations ahead of 2027. It was the outcome of their most recent NWC meeting held in Abuja. Also present there was the FC minister, one of whom has been accused of being anti-party. He holds an appointment under an APC government, but has openly told the media that the PDP would not get his support in any elections going forward until they fix what he calls their mess. Do you think that with the former Senate President now in the picture, the FCT minister would be more willing to put his hands on deck to get the party back on track?
You see, what is happening between Wike and the party? To be clear, in the last 10 years, Wike was the pillar of the PDP as far as funding the party across the country was concerned. So, someone like Wike is not somebody you come and you say, because he has ingrained himself in the party. That said, he also has that moral compass to say, this is where I should stop. I'm in APC government. Let me resign my membership of the PDP. Or you negotiate with your party members, because all over the world, this so-called coalition they are talking about is just like a coalition. A political party forms a government and invite others to reduce tension, to show that we are together as a nation that has a common destiny. You can loan us some of your members to work with us. During the election, it doesn't stop people from, fighting to get the biggest prize. So I think that PDP itself is because the managers of PDP today are not sincere to themselves. That is why the Wike factor has everything they will link it to Wike, everything they will link it to Wike. Whereas the INEC, National Executive Committee of the party, the National Working Committee of the party has a constitution that clearly states what should be done at every point in time, including crisis resolution. So it is the party itself, the managers of the party, that have refused to activate the articles of the constitution of the party that can help it bring its house together. In PDP today, there are hundreds of court orders, court judgment, valid judgment that they have ignored. And under that circumstances, the party cannot be at peace.
Well, I must thank you, Mr. Moses Idika. You've spoken to the issues in the news from a very objective perspective. We appreciate you for sharing your thoughts with us this morning. And we'll be looking forward to having you going into next week.
Thank you very much. My
Always a pleasure.